Hi, and welcome to this eSaleshub video on 3 tips that will help skyrocket your sales from Google and Facebook after lockdown. My name is Mark Taylor and I'm the CEO of eSaleshub. And in this eSaleshub video, I'm going to take you through some data that we've pulled together that plots all of the leads that we generate for all of our clients over the last 14 months. Because the trends are really interesting and it shows that it's not actually coming out of lockdown that is spiking sales, but it's actually announcements that we're going to come out of lockdown that's spiking sales. And then what I've done at the end of this video is actually come with 3 tips to help you take advantage of that demand that's going to come about as we ease restrictions. So let's get straight into the data. Now what I've done here is I've put together all of our lead generation volume. So this is all of our automotive clients, our healthcare clients, our home services clients, our estate agent clients, our legal clients, our financial services clients, all the clients we work with, just to give you an idea about the difference in lead volumes. Now, as you can see here, we're doing very well coming out of January, we're doing very well in Feb, but as soon as they're starting to kind of a talk of lockdown, you can see here that we're already getting uncertainty in the marketplace, less people searching on the internet, and as you can see here, the first lockdown absolutely plummets our lead generation. And that's the key trend throughout all of this. As you can see, when the second lockdown here, you can see a drop in lead volume. Third lockdown, you can see an immediate drop in lead volume. And that's just purely down to a lack of internet searches or a drop in internet searches, a drop in demand. A lot of the people that we work with are retailers, service providers locally, where we generate leads through the phone line. And obviously, if you can't consume those products or there is an inability to deliver those products because of the restrictions, you're not going to get as much demand. And you can see here, and that's definitely one of the trends that I can see, is you can see a massive drop down. Whenever there is a lockdown, you can see that almost immediate drop down. But, and as I mentioned earlier on, what's really interesting is the spikes are coming because it's the actual talk of coming out of lockdown. And what I mean by that is I've noticed in the media that the conversation changes from the lockdown itself to when are we going to come out, and then the talk about the government making announcements. Well, actually, it's when the government makes an announcement that we're going to start looking at coming out, or there's a date that they've got in mind for ending the lockdown restrictions. It definitely has an impact here on lead generation figures. Now, you can see here, this is where we've eased lockdown restrictions. So this is kind of June time. And this is Eat Out to help out. Now, I've included it in here not because we generate leads for restaurants and bars, but because this was the time when you had the least amount of restrictions in the UK during that kind of July, August, September period. And as you can see here, as soon as you get an easing of lockdown restrictions, the lead volume is pretty consistent. But your biggest spikes in activity really are coming from, when the announcements are made and when when there's more talk of any lockdown. And that's even more so seen here. I've actually updated the figures to the first 2 weeks in February. And what's really interesting here is, particularly in the UK, there's been a lot more talk about ending the lockdown restrictions. And as you can see here, we're already starting to see that spike up in demand. Now, the UK government is forecasting that there's a lot of pent-up demand. 250 million has been saved during this lockdown alone, with people just not being able to do anything. And it does feel like there is going to be some pent-up demand. But as you can see here, whenever there's a second lockdown, that kind of increase is coming at the point where they're talking about it in the press and they're almost there with making announcements. So if you're going to send your campaign back live, or you want to take advantage of all this pent-up demand, once the lockdown restrictions are eased, you really need to be thinking about going 2 to 3 weeks before lockdown ends. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on massive opportunity of generating a huge volume of sales as people start to think about coming out of lockdown. I think the most successful companies that or our most successful clients are the ones that were, live 3 to 4 weeks before lockdown ended. First week was just them testing their systems and making sure everything was okay. But those, 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before, 1 week before, they really did see lead volumes spike up dramatically. And it enabled them to really start coming out of that lockdown a lot faster by filling up their diary very, very quickly, selling their products, and almost having a back order system in place so that they can maximise as much as they could possibly can for the pent up demand. And that, I think, is the key message. And that's why, if I go straight into tip number one, start your campaign at least 2 weeks before restrictions are eased. I'd say it's a minimum of 2 weeks. I really wouldn't want to do it any later than that. Internet search increase once the announcement has been made, not the date of the restriction being listed. As you can see from the graph I've just shown you, the spikes and the big spikes are coming from when there's talk about coming out of lockdown or the government announce a specific date when easing of restrictions is going to be lifted. So what would I do? Well, if I'm going to start my campaign early, one of the things I definitely do is think about what offer I'm going to go with. Certainly a couple of our clients, and it was very interesting, some of our clients had post-lockdown offers, some didn't. The ones that tended to have a post-lockdown offer did tend to hoover up more of the available market, and it really does depend on what your strategy is. It might be that we don't want a discount when there's a lot of pent-up demand, we're just going to wait for that to come to us. Or you might think, no, actually, I want to get my diary as full as possible. I want to get my orders done as soon as I possibly can. I'm going to come up with an offer. It's definitely going to be pent-up demand out there. It just depends how you want to react to that. The second thing I'd always advise is check what your competitors are doing. Are they live yet? Can you still march them by going live a little bit earlier? Is there an opportunity to come up with an offer, so that you can take market share away from them? These are all things that you need to think about and consider as part of your going back live and your campaign start strategy. The second tip is get ready to take calls. But whilst call volume has doubled once lockdown eases, so I'm talking about, okay, you sent your lead generation campaign live 2-3 weeks before lockdown's been eased. You're going to get a lot more calls. I think what lockdown does and the easing of restrictions creates uncertainty in terms of what am I allowed to do, what am I not allowed to do. That bed that I ordered, is it still available? Can it still be delivered on the day that you said you were going to deliver post lockdown? Or I know my product's been delayed. When will it now arrive? All of these questions you're going to get, but you've got to make sure that your sales team is not clogged up with customer service calls. So whatever system, whatever strategy you're going to deploy, it's really fundamentally important to make sure that, your sales team does not get clogged up with customer service calls, because if they're taking customer service calls, they're not going to be able to answer the phone and close sales calls. Simple as that. So I always, one of the things I always say to our clients is operationally, make sure you can answer your calls. If that means you've got to draft more people in, or you've got to get more resource, or you've got to get an overflow through a facility like Moneypenny, then start thinking about it now. Don't wait for the problem to happen. Second thing is the systems check. Often people change the phone system to divert or to change the characteristics of the phone system or the rules behind the hunt groups. Do a dummy run, get it tested, make sure it works, because what you don't want to do is drive a load of call volume and not be able to take those calls, quite frankly. And then once you've got your campaign up and running and you're getting calls, the 4 things I say to clients is the key performance indicators for me is how many calls you're missing, what's your wait hold time, how many customer service calls versus sales calls are you getting, and what's your sales conversion. Now, for some clients, or companies out there, that might be quite difficult to do. But with our AI-powered system, we're able to tell our clients in real time how many calls they're missing, what the wait hold time is, how many customer service versus sales calls they're getting, and what their sales conversion is, which is really, really important, because you could be being overflowed with customer service calls and not even know it. You could be seeing 4,000 calls and think, brilliant, we're on for a great sales day. And the next day you find out that no, the sales weren't there because they're all customer service calls. By using our AI-powered tech, what you're able to do is we can categorize those calls for you using artificial intelligence by scanning the call, establishing what's happened on the call, so you can see in real time what's happening in your business, so you can plan better for the peaks and troughs that you're about to come up against with the easing of lockdown restrictions. And the third tip is don't forget Google My Business. Google did some research recently, and 57% of people said that once restrictions were lifted, they were more likely to spend money at a business based locally than they would have done before. I think one of the things that lockdown has done is it's forced people to buy locally because of the travel restrictions. But the thing about Google My Business is because it's free, it often gets overlooked. But what we found is, particularly for some retailers and some service operators, that Google My Business by location actually drives more calls from your customers than location pages on your website do. We also have found that there's a high proportion of returning customers compared to new customers. So the last thing you want to do with people that phone you from Google My Business is, not be able to service them correctly. But what can you do with your Google My Business entry? Well, you can use someone like us to optimize it for you. It's one of the services that we offer our clients. And with Red Driving School, we increased their sales by a factor of 5 within 6 months. And because you've got a lot of opportunity within Google My Business, you can make it as complex as you want to, or you can make it as simple as you want to. But obviously, you've got to make sure your company name and location is correct. The descriptive text, which is down here at the bottom, is optimized correctly for the keywords and locations you want to appear for. Your photo content and any of the videos that you upload is relevant and is relevant to that location. Any questions that you think are relevant to the customer, you can actually upload your own questions and answer your own questions. Google enables you to do that. So what's the best number to call if I want to buy the product? What's the best number to call if I've got a customer services inquiry? Again, these are great tools that you can use to segment the calls so the customer knows which team to speak to. Always make sure that you respond to anybody that leaves you a review. But the main thing is, and what we found is very, very effective, is using these offer cards here at the bottom. What we found is every time you upload an offer card, they're free to do. You simply get a really good spike in leads just by simply putting a postcard. Now, it's not as simple as that. You're going to make sure you've optimized your entry. And as you can see here, I've typed in driving school in Wolverhampton, and Red ranked 3rd here, which is the work we've done with them. But just by optimizing your Google My Business entries, you can develop a hell of a lot of call volume just by optimizing those entries. Now, the thing is, they're free. Google My Business is a free product from Google, and it's often overlooked. But as I said earlier, what we tend to find with a lot of our clients is Google My Business actually drives more calls than their location pages on their website. So it really is something not to be ignored and to review and to have a think about. So in conclusion, internet searches increase once an announcement has been made, not the date of the restriction being lifted. So you really need to be thinking about going live with your lead generation campaign, 2 to 3 weeks before those lockdown restrictions are lifted, because your clients are searching for your product and service now, and the last thing you want them to do is to go to your competitors. Call volume does double once lockdown is eased. So yes, you will get a spike in sales leads, and then it will double as soon as we're out of lockdown. But get yourself ready now. And then the final thing is 57% of people said that once restrictions were lifted, they were more likely to spend money in the business-based locally than would before. A lot of people are going to be searching locally, so you must make sure that you've got your location pages, you've got your Google My Business optimized, and don't forget 70% of people call a business when it is locally searched on Google. So it really is important to make sure that you're ensuring that when a customer calls you, that you can answer the phone. And that's why an omni-channel strategy really, really is important nowadays, because it's not just about online bookings. Online generates offline sales as well, and being able to track those, well, that's why you'd use a platform like eSaleshub. But that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you enjoyed it. My name's Mark Taylor, and I'm the CEO of eSaleshub.